Do you remember biting into Lion Bar and wondering how something so messy could taste so perfect? Or maybe you got a taste of Karamac's smooth, buttery sweetness and never forgot about it again. These vintage bars had a way of sticking in the mind, even after they vanished from shelves. One of them had a reputation for being almost impossible to chew, and kids in the 70s often joked that it could pull your teeth out. Keep watching to find out which one, starting with the most popular one, Whisper. Sometimes a bar becomes more than food. It becomes a piece of culture. Whisper was launched in the 1980s, and it was one of those rare treats. Its airy, bubbly texture made it lighter than most, but it was the cheeky adverts and the instant popularity that set it apart. For years, it was a fixture, tucked into lunchboxes and corner shop shelves alike. Then, in 2003, came the shock. Cadbury announced it was gone just like that. The outcry was immediate. Fans staged protests, plastered messages online, and even sent letters demanding its return. Never before had a bar's disappearance stirred such passion. In 2007, Cadbury caved to the pressure, and Whisper came back in triumph. But this next one broke even more hearts when it was discontinued. 2. Cadbury Milk Tray Bar. Opening a milk tray box was like unwrapping a moment of luxury. The Cadbury Milk Tray Bar took all those assorted fillings, pineapple dessert, orange cream, lime cordial, marzipan, and hid them inside one large chocolate bar. Every bite became a guessing game, a surprise tucked into each square. Families squabbled over favorites, while others leaned into the mystery. For a while it worked. It felt extravagant, clever, and different, yet the same quality that made it exciting also led to its downfall. Shoppers grew tired of the unpredictability, and the costs of producing so many fillings dragged it down. By the late 1970s, the bar vanished quietly from shelves, leaving only stories behind. Next up, this one ended with even more backlash. 3. Fry's Five Boys. Some wrappers are remembered long after the taste fades, and Fry's Five Boys was one of them. Its packaging showed a young boy's face shifting through 5 expressions: desperation, pacification, expectation, acclamation, realization, like a silent drama playing out on every bar. Behind the artwork sat a simple slab of milk chocolate, one of the earliest widely available in Britain, launched in 1902. For more than 70 years, your grandparents used it to satisfy their cravings through wars, rationing, and changing fashions. But by the mid-1970s, the world wanted more. A plain block of chocolate no longer stood out, and in 1976, Fry's Five Boys was quietly withdrawn. The boys' expressions no longer looked out from shop counters, but the image burned itself into memory. But the next one crushed hopes even deeper, due to the same unpredictability issue. 4. Fry's 5-center. Few bars turned snacking into a game of chance the way Fry's 5-center did. Each bar was divided into 5 neat segments, each hiding a different fondant: raspberry, lime, strawberry, pineapple, or orange. Later versions added coffee and vanilla, but the joy was always in the mystery. You never knew what flavor would greet you next, and that surprise made the bar beloved. First launched in the 1960s, it carried on for decades before fading away in the late 1980s. By then, fondant had fallen out of fashion, replaced by caramel and nutty fillings. Competitors offered predictability, while 5-center thrived on now knowing what you'd taste. In the end, the gamble no longer appealed to shoppers, and the bar disappeared. Still, petitions and fan campaigns have never stopped calling for its return. Our next candy's fall shocked fans even more. 5. Tiffin Bar. Some chocolates were more about texture than taste, and Tiffin was one of them. First launched in 1937 and revived in the 1960s, it mixed crunchy biscuits and raisins into Cadbury's dairy milk. Inspired by Irish recipes, it offered chew, crunch, and chocolate in one tidy bar. It wasn't a luxury item, but it didn't need to be. It was reliable, familiar, and satisfying. For 35 years, it kept a place on shelves, holding steady while other chocolates came and went. Then, in 1972, it suddenly disappeared. The reason was simple. Caramel-packed bars and nougat-heavy sweets stole the spotlight, making Tiffin seem tame by comparison. Though it has occasionally reappeared in limited editions, it never regained a permanent spot. Each comeback sparks nostalgia, but only briefly before fading again. Up next, this one almost broke families apart. 6. Banjo Bar. Banjo was the kind of treat you'd spot in a shop window and never forget. It wasn't the sort of chocolate that shouted for attention, but the kind you stumbled on and quietly claimed as your own. First appearing in the 1950s, it promised a crisp bite of wafer and smooth chocolate filling. It was a much lighter treat compared to heavier bars. That's why it earned a loyal following before being discontinued in 1954, a brief run that seemed to end too soon. Then came the 1970s revival, but the return didn't feel the same. Cadbury had altered the recipe and the familiar comfort was gone. Instead of nostalgia, fans tasted disappointment. Sales slumped and the bar disappeared again, this time for good. By the late 1970s, the Banjo Bar was nothing more than a fading memory. If you thought this was brutal, the next one's saga stung even worse. 7. The Spangles Saga. If one sweet captured the spirit of post-war Britain, it was Spangles. These square, fruit-flavoured lozenges were more than candy. They were symbols of optimism after years of rationing. Introduced in the late 1940s by Mars, their bright wrappers and bold flavours became staples in pockets and purses. Through the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, they remained beloved. But by the 1980s, they slipped away without much explanation. Some blamed changing tastes. Others said competition grew too strong. Whatever the reason, the loss left a hollow space. Even decades later, people still speak of Spangles with the kind of fondness reserved for childhood memories. And yet, this next one struck even closer to the heart. 8. Opal Fruits. For years, opal fruits were stitched into everyday life. Their chewy, fruity burst of flavour was unmistakable, and the name itself carried a rhythm that was fun for the kids. Launched in 1960, they became iconic. Then in 1998 came a decision that blindsided Britain. To match global branding, opal fruits were renamed Starburst. The flavours stayed, but the name was gone, and with it, something more, the core identity. People joked about the change, but the truth was, it hurt. The sweets still lined the shelves, but they didn't feel the same. Even when the original name made a brief comeback years later, it couldn't fully undo the sense of loss. A simple rebrand had stolen away a part of childhood. Up next, this one ending cut even deeper. 9. Aztec Bar. The Aztec Bar was Cadbury's bold step into the world of nougat and caramel, launched in 1967 to compete directly with Mars. Wrapped in a striking purple and gold wrapper, it promised indulgence in every bite, thick layers of chewy nougat, sticky caramel, and a smooth chocolate coating. For many, it felt like Cadbury finally had a heavyweight to rival its biggest competitor. School children clutched them on lunch breaks, while adults enjoyed them as a filling snack on the go. Yet despite its strong start, the Aztec never truly captured the same love as Mars. Some said it was too heavy, too sweet, and it lacked the crispness that made other bars refreshing. By 1978, Cadbury pulled it from shelves, and it disappeared almost without a fight. Later in the 1980s, Cadbury tried again with the Raiders bar, but that too failed to stick. Now, if you thought that was depressing, wait till you see the next one. 10. Amazing Raisin Bar. Launched in the early 1970s, the Amazing Raisin Bar was a true product of its time. Health trends were beginning to creep into the candies too, and Cadbury leaned into the idea. They paired plump raisins with chewy nougat and a coat of milk chocolate. They chose a name that stuck in people's heads long after the bar itself was gone. For some, it was a delight, a fruity kick wrapped in creamy sweetness. For others, the raisins felt strange as hell. It never quite found its audience. Children often swapped them in the playground for something more exciting, and adults didn't see it as a proper treat. By the mid-1970s, Cadbury axed it quietly, and the bar faded into obscurity. Today, it survives only in old adverts, but this next chocolate stirs up even more nostalgia. 11. Nutty Bar. The Nutty Bar lived up to its name. Packed with fudge, peanuts, and caramel, it was a chewy, crunchy, salty sweet experience that offered more bite than most. Produced by Rowntree, it had its loyal fans who craved that mix of textures. For a time, it felt like a reliable classic, never flashy but always satisfying. Yet by the 1980s, the tide had turned. Softer, creamier bars pulled in bigger sales, and the nutty bar started to look dated. Eventually, it was discontinued, fading quietly while other names dominated. For those who loved it, its disappearance felt like losing a dependable friend, the sort of bar you could always count on. Yet, our next chocolate's fall hit harder. 12. Old Jamaica. This was dark chocolate laced with rum-soaked raisins. Old Jamaica was never a bar for children. Launched in the 1970s, it carried a boozy sophistication, the kind of treat adults claimed as their own. It stood out instantly, rich and indulgent, with a kick that made it memorable. Through the 70s and 80s, it built a strong following, but by the 1990s, tastes were shifting. Alcohol-flavored chocolates fell out of fashion, and Old Jamaica quietly disappeared from shelves. It has resurfaced occasionally in limited runs, each time stirring a rush of nostalgia, but never for long. Its legacy remains as one of the boldest bars of its time, a daring mix of flavor that no one else quite replicated. Next up, this candy's ending brought even more despair. 13. Caramac. This was a bar like no other, and that was its strength. Launched in 1959 by Macintosh, it wasn't even technically chocolate, more a caramel-flavored candy bar, golden in color and buttery in taste. For decades, it was a familiar sight, instantly recognizable in its bright red and yellow wrapper. Its unique flavor made it stand apart, and for many, it carried the taste of childhood. Yet, uniqueness couldn't save it forever. In 2023, after more than 60 years, Nestlé confirmed its discontinuation. Fans were devastated. Petitions sprung up, social media exploded with tributes, and old bars sold for ridiculous prices online. For something so simple, its absence left a huge hole. But the next one's disappearance tore through memories like nothing else. Wharton, Cadbury's Bar 6. For anyone who spent time in a swimming pool, changing room in the 1970s, Bar 6 was the treat waiting at the vending machine. 6 fingers of wafer covered in smooth chocolate, wrapped in colourful paper and foil. It was cheap, cheerful, and everywhere. It didn't try to be fancy, but it didn't need to. Its presence in everyday life made it iconic. Yet by the 1980s, it slipped away. Cadbury pulled the plug, and the familiar wrapper vanished from shops and vending machines alike. Its loss was felt most by those who remembered grabbing one on the way home from school or after a swim. It wasn't grand, but it was woven into routine. But this next bar's loss left an even deeper ache. 15. Texan Bar. Do you remember biting into a chocolate so hard that it felt like your teeth would fall out? That was probably the Texan Bar. This one was chewy to the core. Launched in the 1970s by Nestlé, it was famous for its long-lasting nougat center, covered in caramel and chocolate. Some joked it took forever to eat, especially if you left it in the fridge to harden. Others loved its stickiness, a bar that tested your teeth but rewarded your patience. But by the 1980s, its popularity had waned, partly because of how hard it was to eat. It made a brief comeback in 2005, delighting old fans but never regained its place. Its final disappearance felt like the closing of a chapter. Our next chocolate's fate was even sadder. 16. Rumba Bar. This was Cadbury's attempt to bring a little Caribbean flair to the shelves in the 1970s. With rum-flavored chocolate wrapped around chewy caramel and soft fondant, it stood out from the usual lineup. Its texture was smoother than the Texan Bar, but still gave that satisfying chew. For a while, it carried a sense of novelty, the kind of bar you bought when you wanted something different, yet the rum flavor that made it unique also doomed it. By the late 1980s, alcohol-flavored sweets had fallen out of fashion, and rumba quietly slipped away. It was never revived, never given another chance, leaving only memories of its sweet, boozy kick. But the next one's end cut even deeper. 17. Prize Bar. The Prize Bar was a hidden gem. Launched in the 1970s, it didn't achieve the fame of its rivals, but for those who knew it, it was a favourite. Instead of the finger-style design of Kit Kat, it came as a chunky block of chocolate-coated wafers with a creamy centre. Sweet, light and satisfying, it had its loyal fans who saw it as their go-to bar. But despite its charm, it never built enough recognition. By the early 1990s, it had disappeared without much noise, fading into obscurity. Its absence left fans quietly disappointed, the kind of loss that sneaks up on you years later when you suddenly remember its taste. Yet our next bar's fall left wounds that never healed. 18. Cabana Bar. This bar wasn't afraid to push boundaries. Released in the 1980s, it combined coconut, caramel, and cherry in a milk chocolate shell. To some, it was a tropical masterpiece. To others, it was overwhelming. Its adverts leaned into its exotic personality, trying to make it stand out in a crowded market. For a time, it succeeded. Fans swore by its daring flavor, and for them, its short run was far too brief. But the mainstream never fully embraced it. By the early 1990s, it was gone, leaving only its cult following behind. Today, it's remembered as one of Cadbury's most misunderstood creations. But this next one's disappearance brought even more heartbreak. 19 Drifter Bar. Wrapped in a bright blue wrapper, this one found its place in the 1980s, offering something familiar yet fresh. Drifter was a wafer bar like Kit Kat, but with a twist. It was dipped in caramel before being covered in milk chocolate. The result was a chewy, layered bite that set it apart. Its two slim fingers made it an easy snack, and for years it thrived. But in 2007, Nestle discontinued it, only to bring it back briefly in 2008. The revival failed, and in 2018 it was gone for good. Fans mourned its loss, calling it one of the most underrated chocolate bars ever made. Its absence left a gap for those who loved its chewy, caramel-wrapped crunch, and our next chocolate's ending only made it worse. 20. Spira Bar. Spira was unlike anything else when it arrived in 1984. Instead of a flat bar, it was a pair of hollow chocolate spirals, a design made possible by new manufacturing techniques. Its unique look made it instantly exciting, especially for younger buyers. By 1989, it had spread nationwide, becoming a small but steady favorite. Yet despite its clever design and smooth dairy milk taste, it never built enough sales to survive. In 2005, Cadbury discontinued it entirely. Its loss left fans bewildered. How could something so creative just vanish? Even today, many call for its return, praising it as one of Cadbury's boldest ideas. But this one's fall hit even harder. Number 21. Pyramid. Launched in 1988, Pyramid was exactly what its name promised. A triangular block of dark chocolate filled with smooth mint cream. It stood out instantly, not just for its unusual shape, but for its bold, refreshing taste. Later, it was reshaped into a bar in 1991, but the magic didn't last. Mint chocolate fans adored it, yet sales never climbed high enough to keep it alive. By the mid-1990s, Pyramid was gone, another reminder of how quickly unique ideas could vanish from shelves. Its departure left mint lovers with little more than after eights to cling to. Our next bar's downfall hurt in an entirely different way. Number 22. Lion. The One was first created in 1976, a rugged-looking bar with wafer, caramel and cereal pieces all bound in chocolate. It quickly gained popularity for its messy, chewy, crunchy bite, a bar that felt untamed compared to its polished rivals. For decades it remained strong, but in 2004 it was reformulated and rebranded. Fans noticed the change immediately, claiming it wasn't the same bar anymore. The old Lion with its bold, rough textures was effectively gone, replaced by a softer version that lacked its original punch. Though Lion bars still sit on shelves, the version many grew up with has vanished forever. Next up, this one disappearing was even sadder than the fate of its original version. 23 Whisper Mint. We've already talked about the Whisper bar, but the 1990s brought Whisper Mint, a clever spin on the much-loved original bar. It paired aerated milk chocolate with a cool, refreshing mint layer, creating a perfect balance of lightness and richness. Fans embraced it quickly, praising its smooth bite and refreshing twist. Yet despite its popularity, it was short-lived. Launched in 1995, it lasted less than a decade before being discontinued in 2003. Unlike the regular Whisper, Whisper Mint never returned, despite petitions and nostalgia campaigns. For mint lovers, its loss still stings as one of the greatest missed opportunities in British chocolate history. Next up, this bar's disappearance was straight up devastating. 24 Fuse Bar. When Cadbury launched the Fuse bar in 1996, it was an instant blockbuster. Packed with peanuts, raisins, crisp cereal and fudge pieces, all coated in chocolate, it offered a chaotic but irresistible bite. It quickly became the fastest-selling Cadbury bar since Whisper in the 1980s, proving just how much people loved its wild mix. Yet despite its early success, its glory was brief. By 2006, Fuse was discontinued in the UK, though variations still survive abroad. Its disappearance baffled fans who had embraced its energy and crunch. For many, it felt like Cadbury had robbed them of one of its most daring creations. Our next and final bar's ending left children in tears. 25 Taz Bar. The Taz bar was a childhood favourite of the early 1990s, a small Cadbury milk chocolate bar stamped with the face of the Tasmanian Devil from Looney Tunes. Cheap, cheerful and easy to slip into a lunchbox, it became a treat kids begged for. Yet, in 1994, the character was replaced by Freddo the Frog, as Looney Tunes lost traction with younger audiences. The bar itself didn't vanish, the design did. For fans of Taz, it felt like losing a piece of childhood. What had once been a cheeky cartoon-stamped delight was gone, leaving only Freddo to carry on the legacy. Which of these bars are you most nostalgic for? Let us know in the comments below. If you learnt something new today, make sure to subscribe. See you in the next one.